So MKBHD, the popular tech influencer, just destroyed the Tesla Robotaxi. I want to go over what he said and what he didn't say, and he also talks a bit about Waymo. Let's just jump right in.
But also, Tesla was way more reliant on this safety monitor employee sitting in the passenger seat. Like when I got in the car, it's not a voice from the computer. The person actually asks to see the app to verify that I was actually the one that called the car. And clearly, that would be the person to tell me not to touch the steering wheel if I was to do anything stupid. But then, yeah, as a passenger, you're just kind of sharing a ride with another person, just choosing for the person to not be holding the steering wheel for the sake of helping them beta test this service, which feels a little more silly.
So as you can hear, he's already calling this thing silly. He also refers to this thing as a beta test. And this is something that has always bothered me about any of this kind of stuff is these cars are out beta testing, right? Essentially risking people in the car's lives and your life, even if you're not in the car. And there always seems something kind of wrong with that. Do you guys see what I'm saying here? And then you got to acknowledge that there's a dude sitting in the front of the car, which isn't really a robotaxi if there's a dude in there to monitor said thing. So there's that. Marques also mentioned that Tesla's going to try to test this in yet another city. The initial test is in Austin. Where else are we going?
Funny enough, Tesla, like the other day, as of when I'm recording this, started testing in like a new San Francisco geofenced area, but they're not legally allowed to test without someone in the driver's seat. So they're just running Tesla Model Ys around with someone in the driver's seat ready to take over, but they'll enable FSD.
That seems illegal to me, but I'll let Tesla work that out with San Francisco or wherever they're going to decide to do that. Okay, what else you got for me, Marques? Let's see.
How do I say this? They've been very forgiving of any shortcomings of the service. I've watched a handful of these videos. There's plenty of good stuff, but also plenty of weird stuff and odd maneuvers and phantom braking. There's even a video of somebody getting dropped off in an intersection and saying,
"It looks like we got dropped off right here at the corner."
It's really something to see.
And so that was one thing that I was thinking about when I first saw this. And I mentioned to Yeji that there was a rumor out there that MKB was going to be given access to the Tesla thing. And the first thing that Yeji said, that's my wife, she's like, "Is he sponsored by Tesla?" And I'm like, I mean, I think he says he's independent, but in this particular example, there's no way he's entirely independent because this thing's like a invite only kind of thing, right? So that the general public doesn't have access to this Tesla robotaxi stuff. The government, the National Highway and Safety, actually requested to do tests and monitor what they're up to. Part of what we know, because we don't actually know what happened, is that Tesla wants to keep this stuff confidential. That's about all we know. We know that the government asked to test these things, but we don't know if they were given access or not. I don't know. And when I find out, I'll let you guys know. And I've been actually really curious, what does the independent person say? Now, what's interesting is that when he mentions that, the phrase that he used it was Tesla-themed channels.
I definitely saw a small number of Tesla-themed creators.
I mean, you could use other phrases like, Tesla fluffers, however you want to call these people, Tesla stock promoters. But basically, the only people who first get their hands on it, as Mark has even acknowledged, is that we're really soft on the reviews. And I think he used the word forgiving. Because basically these things don't work the way they're supposed to. The thing is, though, suddenly after all these sort of negativity came out, because we saw how these things really worked, suddenly all those things kind of vanished. And basically, I think this is a PR thing run by Tesla. There's been a lot of question whether or not Tesla is using these things by remote driver, which would certainly matter quite a bit. Whether or not Tesla ever tells the truth, who knows? The government even asked, "Hey, are you using remote drivers?" But we don't know what the answer is to that stuff. And let alone would Tesla even tell us the truth on that anyway, because they've been known to fudge stuff in the past.
Of testing. But just because nothing bad happened to me doesn't mean nothing bad happens. Trust me, there's lots of videos of both Tesla robotaxis and Waymos doing some stupid stuff. So the real challenge for these companies is scaling up that curve without pushing too far. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's a good thing that both companies are being as safe as possible. Waymo is using tons of expensive LiDAR sensors all over their car to try to be as safe as possible. Good. Tesla paying safety monitors to ride along inside every driverless car with a vice grip on a kill switch on the door handle. Good. Like, there are so many edge cases that these cars will encounter.
See, the weird thing about it, the way he described the Tesla monitor, like with a vice grip on the door handle, like, is the Tesla employee, are they afraid? What's going on there with that? My understanding is that the Tesla employee in the car on a supposed robotaxi has a kill switch, basically, can just stop the car. And I've seen it in use. And so there's that. And then the other issue, which actually I'll just mention now, Marques, he does mention how, cars have to learn to, drive in multiple conditions, be it weather or multiple scenarios, and didn't necessarily acknowledge that Austin was like pretty, what's the right word to say it? You could call it plain. Is that a good description? Very small geofenced area. Not necessarily, a good example of a very busy metro. These things that don't go on the freeway. That's my understanding of it also. So it's a very, very small use case scenario.
Try to scale this curve as, safely and methodically as possible. Like I've heard all the talk on Twitter about how, maybe Tesla, without all those expensive LiDAR sensors, will be able to scale faster because the cars are cheaper. Maybe, but if it comes at the expense of any safety, doesn't matter. It won't matter. Like if you can imagine, if there's even one bad incident or if someone gets hurt, you can see the headlines coming from a mile away, how far that sets them back. So it's easy to make fun of, but the geofenced area.
See, and that's actually the map that Tesla's using. I mean, you can see the I'm not sure to say, well, won't say intelligence, we'll say the maturity level of Tesla and Tesla followers, right? And that was suggested by one of the influencers. Hey, what if you draw it like a male organ? Oh, great. What a great way to do geofencing. It's a joke to Tesla, right? This whole thing's a joke. This is all a stock pumping thing. Now, Marques did go pretty soft on Tesla. He could have been much harder than, he called it silly and, does point out some stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that he left out. I'll give you a simple example. There wasn't really much talk by him about like, hey, do we want these robot taxis to replace human jobs? Is that something that we want? Another thing is that there was no mention of like, say, helping people with luggage. Guys, I live here in Busan, Korea. We take taxis quite frequently. It's just, they're everywhere. And essentially, you can call in the app, you can grab one on the street. But one of the most important use case scenarios for many people is help with your luggage. If you don't know, when you go to the airport, right, you take a taxi. Mass transit is also something that Marques didn't mention. It's something I mention all the time. I don't necessarily need to have robot taxis. What I would really like is for more of us to do mass transit. Yes, I just mentioned my wife and I, we take taxis because sometimes, there's certain situations where you need it, but generally speaking, mass transit is actually really, really good here and very cost effective. So Elon has always tried to make these crazy claims that they're going to come in cheap with the robotaxi. I just don't see it happening. Because I'll give you an example. Here in Busan, I can go across the city for about $1. It's just, and you could take like an hour long ride for $1. And I don't think any car will ever get to that cost efficiency. It's just not going to be possible. If you have ever been in a car ride that goes for an hour, say 60 miles or whatever, for $1, let me know. But I'm telling you, that's what the advantage of mass transit is. It's heavily subsidized. It supports the public, and so this is not mentioned. And then the other thing too, which is a big theme of this, he keeps talking about how Waymo seems to be much more expensive, has a lot more sensors, etc. And Tesla cut corners, such went cheap. Now he doesn't use the word cut corners. I'm using that word, but that's essentially what it boils down to. Tesla's a stock pumping company and trying to do this as cheap as possible and scale as quickly as possible, which is a problem from the tech point of view of Marques. Like, oh my God, can they really do it? But he did acknowledge that if there's an accident and something terrible happens, and it's game over. No one wants to ride in your unsafe vehicles. So at least he's honest there.
Waymos this whole time because of all that hardware above you. Now, as a passenger, am I fine with a bunch of extra hardware and maybe more of an eyesore to potentially be more safe? Yeah, of course.
And that's a key there, right? So, and I think most regular people, not Tesla fanboys and fangirls, would agree. Hey, if I have to have these, crazy sensors at the top of the car and maybe they don't look so great, they're not sexy, right? But it keeps me safe. Do you want that? Or a car with no sensors like the Tesla, who's questionable safety? I'm taking the sensors. And I think most regular people, if you present it to them that way, would you rather have a more expensive car, more safe, or a less expensive car, which may be questionable for you and your family? I mean, that's certainly a good point.
One thing that struck me, though, is it does feel, as a customer, like the Waymo actually is a bit further along in like the overall experience of a ride. And what I mean by that is it just feels like it's a little bit more well thought out in some aspects because they've clearly had more stuff happen. So from the placement of the unlock button and the open trunk button in the app. So the car stays locked for anyone else and nobody can get in the car if they didn't call it. You know, the stickers on the steering wheel, because confused people have probably tried to touch the wheel all the time. And when I got in the car, there's this voice that greets me by name and explains what's going on and how it's an autonomous ride and I'm not being recorded. The cameras around the car are just for driving, etc., etc. And the UI.
And when he goes through, and if you want to watch his video, you can. He goes through point by point by point by point by point. But the whole thing is, it's obvious that Waymo's taking this stuff seriously and has thought about all sorts of, safety measures and fail safes. Whereas Tesla, safety is just not that concerned. Remember, they are a stock pumping company over there. They're just trying to say, hey guys, you're all going to be rich. We're going to have like half the countries on these things, and we're going to do 1 billion of these cars. Oh my God, and trillions of dollars coming in. And then we're going to build autonomous robots. Oh my God. It's just like, it's a bunch of nonsense. And it's actually quite interesting to hear, MKBHD's, take on the Waymo thing, was saying, hey, look all these things that they thought out. But this is something that if you've ever been in a good and well-designed product, any number of products in your life, and you're like, hey, that's a pretty cool. I never thought of that particular, function, and now I'm happy that they have that, or that particular reason why they designed it said way. It's good UX design, and it's just the thing with Tesla. They're just losing so many employees, and they're trying to scale out a service that has puts a lot of people's lives on the line. And it's clear that Waymo's way ahead. So that's one issue. And then the other issue is I don't think Tesla's ever going to catch up, and let alone ever do what it says it's going to do.
But as you noticed, there's obviously still a person in the car. This here is Tesla's safety monitor. Every Tesla Robotaxi has one, and that person has a few special buttons they can press on the main display. One to pull over, and one to stop in lane in case they notice anything going wrong. They all also seem to keep a rather firm grip on the door opening button for some reason. Some people think it's another way to safely disengage FSD. Thankfully, though, none of these buttons were needed to be pressed during any of my rides.
And I'd be willing to bet my bottom dollar that, when a big tech reviewer is out reviewing your vehicle, I'm sure Tesla's got all sorts of employees monitoring this thing, make sure everything's going to go okay, that no one gets hurt, that kind of stuff. I mean, you don't think they're just going to let him go out there blind and like no one watching him? I'm pretty sure that lots of people making sure that everything's gonna be good. And for all we know, you never know what that kind of shenanigans Tesla would pull for this kind of thing, where make sure you go on certain routes, etc. So there's that.
Exciting new technologies always follow, I've talked about it before, this curve of like a really steep improvement at the beginning and then a tapering off when it's good enough for the masses and doesn't make massive leaps anymore. And these Tesla and Waymo are both really early at the beginning. Maybe.
Yeah, and he comes across to me, and I know a lot of people like MKBHD. I don't hate him or anything. I think he's fine. But his reviews are designed for a certain kind of person who like worships tech or whatever. So I don't expect him to talk about the financials or anything like that. But you have to understand the context of all this stuff. So Tesla's point of view is, okay, we have to tell everyone that our products are going to be awesome. You should buy our stock, and therefore, in the future, we're going to dominate this particular arena, which is, I guess, robotaxing. And there's never really like a serious question of like, do we really want these things? Who wants these things? How many people actually really, really want this stuff? Do we want a world where we're replacing, people's jobs? I think that's a really key function. Then also not mentioned by MKBHD is that Tesla and Elon Musk are getting sued for overhyping their robotaxi, which is something they do with a lot of their products. And then regarding the whole permit thing in San Francisco, I guess they didn't go through the proper paperwork or whatever. It says introduces a dangerous element to the city, so there's that. And then you got Jeff Bezos. He's got a company that's getting in this thing. I think this is called Zoox. They even got a very different design. I've seen these kind of designs for robotaxi type stuff before. It makes a lot more sense to design it more like this, like a subway car kind of thing, than a regular car. You also got companies in China, which may or may not be working very well. This just came out. Baidu, I guess they had one fall in a construction pit, so there's that. And then you have companies in Korea, where I'm at, and I'm just telling you guys, don't sleep on Kia and Hyundai. They make legitimate technology. We actually did a video on that. You can check that out. So that's my thoughts on the silly Tesla. Want to hear yours? And I'll catch you on the next video.